So just to add a little bit to that, my name is Dustin, as Eric said, and I look after product management at Elemental for what effectively are our cloud solutions. So we do a lot of live streaming and VOD processing in the cloud, and we're going to talk about that a little bit today, but I'm going to focus a lot on Nihar and Vishak.
Thanks, Dustin. So Nihar Bihani, I'm a product manager at Amazon Web Services. Specifically, the part of Amazon Web Services where I work mostly is edge services, and that includes our content delivery network, CloudFront, CDN service, Route 53, which is our DNS service, and also Elastic Transcoder, which is our cloud media encoding transcoding service. And finally, a couple of security offerings that we have, including Web Application Firewall, or WAF.
Hi, I'm Vishak. I'm a technology manager at IGN. I also manage complete video workflow end-to-end for IGN. So we do a lot of live streaming. We produce around 300, 350 premium video content. So we are completely editorial generated content, and we are in the industry for almost 17 years. So we do a lot of video, and we work very closely with Elemental and AWS. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you, Vishak. So we're going to have a pretty casual conversation up here, but before we get started, and I'm going to be asking the gentleman here some questions about different workflows that they're seeing in the cloud or using in the cloud. But I did want to just real briefly talk a little bit about Elemental. I think a lot of you are familiar with us and what we do, but at a high level, I just wanted to give you an overview of our offering. Effectively, Elemental is a software provider that enables media and entertainment companies, as well as enterprise and government companies, to connect video with viewers at massive scale. So effectively, what we're enabling our customers to do is process video, deliver video, serve video across many different deployment models. And essentially, because we're a software provider, it makes it really easy and flexible for our customers to deploy whether that's a fixed function on-premise appliance or in a virtualized on-premise infrastructure or even in the public cloud. So we're going to focus on the public cloud specifically today, and I just briefly want to talk to you a little bit about where Elemental plays in that space. So Elemental Cloud is our platform as a service. It's built on top of Amazon Web Services, and basically enables our customers to automatically provision and deploy services based on the same applications that we would traditionally provide to our customers on-premise. Of course, the big difference in the cloud is that those resources dynamically scale up as video processing requirements fluctuate. And just real briefly, by using our services in the cloud as opposed to on-premise, some of the additional benefits that our customers gain are the ability to rapidly deploy services. So we've had customers who have come to us kind of between a rock and a hard place against delivery deadlines and realized that some component of their workflow wasn't available or wasn't going to work the way they thought that they had originally planned. And so they've come to us and said, hey, can you help? We've only got a few days or a week before we can launch. Is there anything you can do? And so using cloud-based services, we're able to get those customers provisioned and launched in a matter of days, as opposed to the weeks or even months that it can take to rack and stack an on-premise infrastructure. We can also provide large-scale elastic processing, which is great when you look at premier high-profile events like the Olympics or the World Cup, where a tremendous amount of processing volume is required to deliver live streaming content, but it's not necessarily permanent infrastructure that's required. These events take place either once every 4 years or once every 2 years, and they move around the world. So you don't, as a customer, necessarily want to ship a bunch of infrastructure, build out that infrastructure, only to have to tear it down, a couple of weeks later, and then wait another few years until the next event. And then lastly, cloud services are great for providing economic disaster recovery solutions. So a lot of our customers are using on-premise solutions from Elemental, but then provisioning those same resources in the cloud for a failover scenario so that if their physical data center goes down, they can simply divert all processing to the cloud and they don't have to invest in the capital infrastructure for a completely redundant physical data center. Okay? And with that, I'm going to hand it over to our panelists here. And I just, Nihar, I wanted to start by asking you a little bit. I think most of the audience here is familiar with Amazon Web Services at a high level and what you do. But specific to media and entertainment customers, I wanted to ask if you could describe some of the benefits that you're seeing customers derive from using cloud-based services.
Sure. Thanks, Dustin. So from an Amazon Web Services perspective, and specifically for media and entertainment customers, a lot of the benefits that media and entertainment customers see are very similar to any customer of AWS and the benefits that they see. But I'll try to give you specific examples of how media and entertainment use cases benefit from the characteristics that AWS provides. So, first, I want to focus on agility. I think that's one of the key values that a cloud offering like AWS provides. And when it comes to media and entertainment, agility really helps you sort of, innovate quickly and stay up to some of the trends potentially that are happening within the industry. So, for example, you could look at new devices coming out or new formats, and just be able to spin up resources in the cloud and get your content prepared and ready for delivery to those new formats or devices can really help delight your customers. So being agile in that way can be a huge benefit of using cloud services. Elasticity is, while we all understand what that concept is, what AWS really helps provide in a media entertainment use case is, again, that being able to scale up, but for unpredictable levels of capacity that you might need. An example here is, it's a bit older, but NASA JPL, they did live streaming of the Mars rover landing via AWS. And when you're doing something like that, it's so unpredictable. How many viewers will you actually get come to your site to see the live stream? For instance, if somehow the rover ended up finding a sign of life on Mars, that could be millions of viewers who could, without any notice, could come in to see your live stream. So being able to scale your live streaming infrastructure using AWS solutions in an automatic way, that's a huge benefit. The cost benefits, again, when you're running live streaming, so like Dustin mentioned, if there are events that are happening every 4 years, whether that's the Olympics or something that's happening every year, such as the Super Bowl, all of these events have utilized AWS in the past to deliver the live stream. And it's a great advantage of turning that capital expense into operating expense for live streaming delivery, and then just tear down the resources when you don't need them. The last thing I would say is the global aspect of AWS. It gives you a platform to go global, immediately. So AWS has 11 regions around the world, 30 availability zones, and 53 edge locations for our content delivery network. So you have all of this infrastructure at your fingertips to be able to ingest your live stream locally, to be able to process it, lower latencies, deliver it, and go global, right away. So those are some of the key benefits that I see from a live streaming and a media entertainment perspective.
That's great. Thanks, Nihar. Vishak, it's interesting to hear Nihar speak from the perspective of the provider of these types of services. But I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how, as a consumer of these services, IGN is leveraging cloud-based resources, and specifically why, what some of the benefits are to enable your workflows.
Sure. I think I'll answer that with an example. Probably that's the best way to approach. So a couple of years back, when there was a transition of the gaming consoles, so we had Xbox 360 and PS3, and there was a transition to the new generation consoles into PS4 and Xbox One. So of course, it was huge for the gaming industry, and we live stream all the gaming events, including these two. So there was the launch for these two consoles, and we were live streaming. We were prepared for a good amount of traffic on our site, and we estimated it to be double than normally what it is. So we were prepared for 100K concurrent users. So okay, we are good. We are ready for the scalability, and we are on AWS. So we had written all our scripts, and everything was elastic, and we were ready. So 100 is what we estimated, but who knows, it would be 250K. So it's almost 2.5 times what we had expected. So at this point, the live stream is up, the users are watching your stream. At this point, you really need the elastic feature of AWS. So without that, we would have been crashed, and it would have been a panic situation. But because of the features that AWS provides, we were able to easily scale and spin up new boxes and handle the new streaming across all the users. So it was really nice. So this example clearly tells us that cloud-based solutions is best for live streaming. And of course, we use in-house hardware as well, and that is normally for the weekly events that we do. So on IGN, we do IGN Plays Live, which is a 2-hour live streaming on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays at 1 to 3 p.m. I'm not really promoting this, so 1 to 3 p.m. So at that time, users who are really IGN fans, they jump onto the channel, they consume this content. So we know that it'll be around 5 to 15,000 users, concurrent users. So this is a small traffic when compared to what I said about Xbox and the PS4. So for this, we use in-house hardware. So we don't really rely on the cloud services. So basically, depending on the use case, you have to choose what exactly you want to do. So we know that the cloud services are really cheap, but it's not zero, right? So if you have the hardware in-house, so you can get it to zero based on the events that you're streaming. So yeah, it depends on the use case.
That's great, thank you. So Nihar, Vishak's talking a lot about live streaming services in the cloud, and when I'm talking with customers, a lot of times, everybody sort of understands how VOD applications are really applicable to the cloud because of their elastic and spiky workflow nature. But I was wondering if you could go back to the services that you described before and talk specifically about how those services are enabling customers to produce live streaming events in the cloud, both on a perpetual basis as well as on an event-by-event basis.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it'll be helpful to have a slide here. Yeah, so this one. So what I wanted to walk through is from enabling, from the perspective of enabling media entertainment customers. I thought it'd be best to describe some of the services that and how these services fit into the specific components of a workflow that you may have. Even from a live perspective, the workflow is very similar, where you're ingesting your live stream, and you can use services such as AWS Direct Connect, or you can just ingest directly into Amazon EC2, or use some of our partner solutions, and I'll talk about that in a bit as well. And then, you may be storing the live to VOD version of your live stream, so you can store that in Amazon S3 or one of the other storage solutions that are available. And there's a variety of different storage solutions available as well. So S3 is really targeted at frequently accessed data, whereas S3 now has an option for infrequent access, which is a different sort of SKU. And we also have Glacier, which is long-term archival. So really, depending on what you need, you can use different storage options. From a processing perspective, if it's your live stream, it's real-time encoding of that live stream. There are options available just running your media server on EC2 and using that to do the encoding in real time. You could use one of our partner solutions there as well. The Elemental Cloud offers that option as well. Even for EC2, one thing to keep in mind is that the compute needs that you may have could be different based on different types of events. So there are different options for compute available also. So you could go the high I/O instances, or the high memory instances, or the high compute instances. There's GPU instances. So again, depending on the type of event that you're doing or the type of use case that you have, you can use a different option for compute. For delivery, there are services such as CloudFront, which is the content delivery or the CDN service. A couple of features I'd like to talk about there for live specifically. If you want to authenticate your users, you could use CloudFront's signed cookie functionality. What signed cookie allows you to do is only configure your CDN only such that if your users have a valid signed cookie, only then your manifest files and your fragments get served to that user or to that device, to the player. So it's a way for you to authenticate your users without necessarily changing your URLs for a live stream. With Route 53, which is our DNS service, you could do failover for a live stream. So you could have two different stacks up and running. And Route 53 offers health checks and DNS-based failover functionality. So you could use that to just fail over if the stream is not, if there are errors or if there's a problem in one of the streams. And then analytics, I think that's a huge component as well for live streaming, and with Amazon Kinesis and some of the other offerings we have. Elastic MapReduce for processing, RDS for data, Redshift for data warehousing. There's a lot of options available. So these services are really how we enable the media entertainment use cases, live and VOD, to really create a custom workflow that fits your need based on the resources that you require, and that's how we enable a lot of the customers.
Thank you. So, drawing on the custom workflow aspect of what you're saying, Vishak, Nihar's given us kind of an overview of a broad range of capabilities and services, and I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more specifically about, what you guys are doing. What is IGN doing with some of those key services? How are you leveraging, and ultimately, what's the product that you're delivering to consumers using these cloud services?
Sure. I'll definitely speak about a case study, but before that, Nihar spoke about ingesting. So we have tied up Elemental with AWS. So all our live streaming segments are directly pushed to AWS. So we are saving all of them out there. We are also saving all our VODs, and we are dynamically packaging all the VODs too. So we are using the ingestion module of AWS, and we are also using the CloudFront. So CloudFront is really good, which I heard from Nihar. It is basically a user-level authentication. So normally what we do is we don't do user-level authentication. We do a query parameter signature so that the client who is trying to consume the content, if he just has a query parameter, which is a signature, it's pretty easy to hack, or maybe take your stream and stream it somewhere else and do different things, which is not expected. So if you have user-level security, then that is really good because it's based on cookie. And even if you take the stream and put it somewhere, if it is a non-cookie environment, or maybe if the user doesn't have the cookie, so it's completely blocked. So it's always good to have user level and not rely on the stream level security, which I would highly suggest. Because we recently launched a service called IGN1, which I'll be speaking now. We created a stream, and the stream is, of course, has signatures. We are still not in CloudFront. It is super easy for anyone to take that and create Apple TV app within one day and put our stream up and running. So it's basically the authentication is super easy to hack into. So that's what is really helpful. And the next one is S3. We are using S3 to store all our content, and it is really helpful to scale and serve as fast as possible. Cool. And to continue with this, I think I'll speak about the case study. I don't know how many of you were in the luncheon yesterday. How many of you were in? Cool, good amount of them. But I'll be speaking about the case study which I spoke yesterday, but I'll be adding a few more points about where AWS and how we're using it. Sorry, I have to go through a bunch of things. So, it's the same deck. But IGN1 is a really good case study for me, especially because I've worked with it end to end, and I faced all the issues, and it's really nice to understand where exactly the video live streaming on the internet and video live streaming on a television is. So the main challenges come in scalability, and the main challenges comes in monetization. So these are the two big things, and we had really fun solving them. So The first thing is, sorry. Yeah, so we have 4 different goals that we had. It should be always on. And also, I'm not sure how many of you were in the previous session. We were speaking about interactive chat experience. So interactive chat experience is really good as a user, but it's really challenging for the technology to stream 1080p content along with a chat which has 10,000 to 20,000 users chatting simultaneously. So you have a lot of things happening on the browser. So it's really heavy for the browser to take so much of CPU and have a video that is not stuttering. So we need to maintain a lot of traffic control modules. So you need to allow like, okay, 3 chats per half a second or 4 chats per half a second that can pop in. Because if you allow all 10,000 users to chat, it's like a stream. No one can really read anything. So all those things you need to do, and also you need to make sure that you're loading the chat after the frame has been loaded. So basically the call should be working with the video player. You should be working at the frame level of the video so that the chat is not really affecting the video streaming. I mean, especially if you're on a real event, something like E3, where we have like 100K users or 150K users watching the stream and chatting. So that's where the challenge comes in. You have a lot of users, a lot of renditions that you need to play with, and also you have too many users over there, right? So, and again, you have a live and VOD. This is the most fun part. So, for me, after working with this project, it's pretty simple. VOD and live, the only difference is VOD has been created and saved, and it's the same format, the same segment. Live is, of course, it is dynamically generated. But the ease at which you can convert VOD to be simulated live is just to have a manifest that has both the live segments and the VOD segments in the same manifest and serve it to the client. So the client doesn't really get to know that it's a live or VOD. So if you want to create a simulated VOD which has live segments, just create an app which pulls the segments from both and creates one manifest, and it is concurrently served to all users. So people are watching the same content at the same time, and it may be live or VOD. It's in the same manifest. And the third one is we wanted to monetize this. Monetization is, of course, huge. So because we have live on VOD, there are challenges about what exactly you want to insert in there, whether it is a 30-second ad or 60-second or 90-second ads. And if it is an ad pod, you have the challenge of filling it with all 90 seconds of the space that you have. Interactive chat experience, I spoke about it. I'll just move on to the architecture. So yeah, this is where AWS plays a really good role and elemental. So AWS, we are using the node stitcher that we're using there. That is actually stitching both the segments from live and VOD together into one manifest and serving to the client as a single stream. So the user will not get to know which segment that the player is streaming is a pre-recorded segment, and which segment that the player is streaming is a live segment. So it's a single stitch stream. So it's something like a television. If you're watching a sport event, and so the sport event is live, and after the live is done, you smoothly transition into VOD. And after the VOD is done, if you have one more live event, it smoothly transitions to that. But the way it works in web today is if you want to watch a live, you click a different player, and the player plays live. If you want to consume some VOD, you click onto something else or navigate to a different page and click something else, that is VOD. There is no real experience which is pretty similar to television, where live and VOD are smooth stitched together. So that's what we did with IGN 1. So as you can see there, we have both the segments saved in AWS. And we also have VODs, which is in MP4. And we are in real time packaging them to M3U8, which is TS segments. And also we are also adding ID3 tags to these segments so that we can identify which content that is being placed within this stitch stream. So say, for example, you had 10 videos. Everything is stitched together. On the client side, you can't identify, okay, which video started and which video ended. You need to know that for analytics, for ad pods, ad targeting. And so basically for all these analytics, you need to know what's happening on the client side. So you need to put some metadata within the stream so that the client can identify and make the appropriate analytic calls. So we put all these ID3 tags for the VODs, and also we use ID3 tags for ad targeting as well. We put ID3, which has metadata about what is the ad pod duration, what is the video ID, and what is the user information. Everything is tied together and put it and added as ID3 tag in that. And we use ID3 tag for ad insertion in live stream as well. So within the live stream, we have TS segments, right? And all these segments are saved in real time. And we're also using a REST API, which is provided by Elemental. So when you basically pass the same metadata that you pass for VOD for ad pods, use the REST API, insert that metadata into the live stream, and use the same metadata on the client side to make an ad call dynamically. If you don't do client side, you will lose the user level targeting, and also you will lose the analytics part. Because if you stitch the ad on the server side, you will basically not be able to identify when the ad started, when the ad ended, how many users consumed what percentage of the ad. Because for the clients, it is very important to know how many users watch 50% of the ad, how many users watch 75% of the ad. So it's possible only if you do the ad call and stitch the ad on the client side. So we are doing the server side queue point insertion and client side ad insertion. And also, the main thing that I want to point out here is the Node.js stitcher box that we're using. So this is the main box that is serving the stream. So based on the user traffic that we have set up AWS to automatically scale and spin up new boxes and bring down the boxes as the traffic goes down. So that layer is really helping us to handle the traffic transparently. So we don't really worry about how it is being handled. If there is a real event and if the users are really jumping onto our channel and watching more and more content, then it automatically scales. And because everything is cloud, this is possible. If we do this something in-house, this is really not a solution that we can expect from. Oh, thank you. That's it.
So, Vishek, there's a lot going on here in this workflow. And when I look at this at a high level, I mean, it's a very innovative workflow that you've essentially used to deliver a linear television experience via the internet and using cloud resources. Is that a fair estimation?
Yes, that's correct.
So that kind of brings me back to something you said earlier, Nihar. You talked about how cloud services enable agility. And I really see agility as an enabler itself for innovation like this. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of the other innovative use cases that you've seen customers using cloud services to implement.
Yeah, I can quickly point out a couple of examples. So from an innovation perspective, and this is a great example right here, but there's a lot of customers doing very innovative things when it comes to doing things in real time or live streaming or just in the media space and deliver value to customers or to consumers and end users. A couple of examples. First one is Major League Baseball Advanced Media Group, so that's MLBAM. They spoke at the recent reInvent conference, so there's a video up on YouTube, and I encourage you to take a look at that. But what they're doing is using AWS services and sending or streaming in real time data from the baseball stadiums, and they've got this really fascinating missile radar detection technology that's there in the stadiums, where they're taking 2,000 measurements of the ball every second and sending that over to AWS in real time for analysis, and then turning that back around and delivering that to the viewers. They have an application called StatCast, and you may have seen that during the ball games. It's powered by AWS. So it's a very cool and innovative way in which they are using different services and doing this real-time processing. Second thing I wanted to talk about is an internal customer of ours. So it's Amazon Video team, and the CloudFront team, which is the CDN team, has been working closely with Amazon Video to really help improve the experience for viewers for their long tail content. So Amazon Video has about 600 or over 600,000 titles. So you can imagine that there's a huge long tail where some of the videos get viewed very infrequently. And the traditional CDN architecture of only caching the most popular videos, especially as these media files get bigger, was not sort of serving the goal that Amazon Video has. in terms of providing that great experience. So we've been working on a new architecture that is optimized for throughput and storage, a new CDN architecture, and that has tremendously helped improve the rebuffer rates and the error rates, and just the quality and the throughput and the quality of experience that Amazon Video's viewers are getting. So those are just a couple of areas where we're innovating jointly with our customers, both internal and external. The last thing I want to say is, with Elemental now part of AWS team, that's another area where we see a lot of innovation coming in the future. Technology integration as well as building scalable solutions to really help media entertainment customers be more agile, be more scalable, whether they're running their infrastructure on-premise, in the cloud, or in a hybrid scenario.
Thank you. So I think we're short on time, but I just wanted to ask one more question. Vishak, in kind of keeping with the innovation theme, I just wanted to ask how, going forward, obviously what you've put together is very innovative already, but going forward, how do you see and how do you continue to leverage Elastic services and cloud services to continue to drive innovation in your workflow?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is just a start, as I said. We had never tried stitching a VOD in live unless this product was out of the product team pipeline. When we saw this, we actually initially started off with reloading the player or reloading the source to be a VOD, something like a playlist. So that, as I said, it has the experience of a playlist. So if you're watching a video on YouTube, after the video is done, within 5 seconds, the next video loads. So it's a stream. Of course, you're watching a bunch of VODs, but it's not a stream. It's not like all the users are not watching simultaneously the same content. So if you want to do that, you have to do simulated live. And if you do simulated live, that's where the challenges comes in. Product team wants the actual live stream to be part of it. And of course, the sales team comes and says they want to monetize it. So that's where the challenge comes in. And luckily, with all the video as software solutions by Elemental has helped us to reach that goal so far. And with the Elastic capabilities of AWS, we have finally launched. And I would highly appreciate you guys go and check out ign.com/ign1. It's actually the stitch stream that you can see on that. And also by doing this, we have actually seen user consumption almost double than what it used to be with just VODs. It's still the same video, but we are streaming as simulated live. That has almost helped us to increase the video consumption to be double, which is huge. So this is a start. We have seen great results, and we are looking at basically customizing the channel or maybe launching more channels, things like that. So that's definitely in our pipeline. We are looking at it. That's about it.
That's fantastic. So I think we're out of time here. I'm really excited to see kind of the future of where IGN takes this, and like Nihar said, working together with AWS to continue and deliver innovative solutions that customers such as yourselves can take advantage of. So thank you, my panelists here for the time today, and I think that's it. Thanks, everyone.
Check, check. Hello, everyone. How are you today? My name is Shannon Rutherford. I'm the Director of Digital Media Video Operations at the NFL. My team oversees the live streaming delivery of all of the NFL's content as well as VOD. And we also cover dynamic ad insertion as well. So today, I wanted to talk a little bit about how it's a broadcast medium primarily for the NFL, but how it's changing into more of a digital medium and how that's growing a lot in the last few years. So I'll briefly just talk about the content production and consumption side of things and where those lines are blurring. NFL Now, I'll use as a great example of that. NFL Now is a 24/7 linear stream that looks and feels very much like a broadcast TV station. And then I'll also give you just a brief little overview on NFL Mobile on how we do live streaming there. And then I'll open up for questions. There's a lot to cover that I could cover, but it's only 30 minutes, so I'm going to try to skip through quite a bit. So I'll try to keep it at a maybe 20,000 foot level. So starting off here, looking at just sort of what it takes to produce or consume content. These are very thematic to what you've been hearing today and yesterday around this sort of convergence. Primarily as a broadcast medium, you would have to have a lot of equipment and a lot of people to support a studio or field location with a crew, camera, talent, graphics, and then you would have to monetize that with commercials, either national or local, and then your delivery mechanism was either cable or satellite or broadcast, and you would have to have a TV to consume that. Now with digital, some of that stuff is the same, but it offers the opportunity to consume content and create content on a phone, on a computer, YouTube for like user-generated content. And then one of the important things is the ability to do pre-roll, mid-roll, and dynamic ad insertion. And then of course the delivery mechanism, you have a lot more capabilities. You don't have to have a TV. You can consume it on any device with Wi-Fi or cellular or Ethernet. And then along those same lines, let's look at how more and more content at the NFL is being generated and conceived for digital distribution only. In 2014, we had about 4 shows that we created in a studio in Los Angeles, primarily for distribution on digital devices. And then in 2015, we see that's grown almost 2x, if not more, with introduction of Madden Live, the Dave Damashek football program, Move the Sticks, and NFL Now Game Day Blitz. So now you have a pretty wide offering of digital shows that you can consume on your devices. And again, just looking at the market, this kind of supports the growth of the market. In 2007, the Apple iPhone was launched. There's now over 190 million people that have a smartphone. And there's only 116 million TV households in the US. So this is only for the US, and we can see it's taken very little time for the reach of a smartphone to surpass televisions, which were invented in 1939. Along those same lines, there's obviously been this big change in video consumption, whereas since 2010, TV consumption has pretty much plateaued. The last 5 years, the amount of time that adults spend watching content per day is pretty much the same, whereas we look at digital consumption in the last 5 years, and it has been rapidly growing. So that's kind of all in theme of sort of where the market is, what the opportunity is, and especially for content creators such as the NFL to maximize that opportunity with the rapid reach. And now I'd like to talk a little bit about how NFL Now is one of those great examples of reaching the fans across a digital device. So just a quick sort of question. Here's 2 pictures of a control room. Which one is TV and which one is digital? Or are they both TV? I'm open to anybody to make a guess. The right is digital? Okay. The left is NFL Red Zone. The right is NFL Now. So you were correct. The right is digital. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and launch NFL Now. Hopefully the internet works here. I might need to do something real quick. Hyatt Meetings. All right, thanks for your patience. Okay. Let me try this again then. So this is NFL Now. This is the experience that you would see if you logged on to NFL.com/now. and these guys are talking about fantasy starts and sits for week 11. And what's interesting about this is that on the left-hand side, you have all of the rundown. And you can see what's currently live is this piece of content. The bottom right-hand side gives you a title and a little bit of a caption around that content. And if you wanted to, you could easily navigate and click on any of these segments if you didn't want to have a sit-back experience. Or you could just sit back and let the rundown bar play, and it will look and feel very much like you're turning on SportsCenter. But this is a very NFL-centric product. And if you're an avid fan or you just want to kind of catch up on what's going on in the NFL, you come here and you just sit back and you watch. What's interesting about this product, it was a unique challenge because how do you have a lean back live experience, but yet you know what you're watching? So we had to solve that with a little bit of software and architecture, and I'll go ahead and give you that sort of overview real quick. Oh, and I should have kept it there because a big piece of that actually is dynamic ad insertion. So it was about to go to commercial, and I can go back too, but when it goes to commercial, it actually dynamically replaces the commercial spot with an ad that's stitched in dynamically based on what has been sold. So talking about how the NFL Now content is curated and created, we basically have a CMS that has a bunch of assets in it that we are creating in real time. We have a studio that we produce this content, and as we're producing the content in real time, we have editors who will have a tool that will, on the right-hand side, look at what's being created, and they can literally just drag and drop and order the sort of rundown, if you will, on the left-hand side. And once they hit publish, it publishes that sort of as a feed that the application then consumes. So then on the software encoding side, you basically have software that we've written that will basically connect over an API to the live encoder to say, what is the current input that you're playing right now? We will then match that input as a regex against the JSON feed that the software consumes from the curation tool. So that curation tool will create a feed of this is how the content is ranked. Once the software knows what the current input is of that live encoder, it will then match that to what the CMS ID is based on the rundown bar. Once it does that, it actually then will insert an ID3 tag with that CMS ID into the elemental encoder, and then the UI, the player, will then read that ID3 data and then update the UI. It does all of this every 1 second, so it's constantly churning out that sort of ping. That way, if I come into the experience, I don't have to wait 10 seconds to know what I'm actually watching. So that red live button that says this is what you're watching now is very important to the product, so that the user experience was a solid one when they came in and they could actually understand what they're watching. So that's how we sort of solved that with the ID3 tag. And when the update of the playlist happens, the software will also then make a call to the API of the encoder and say, this is your new playlist. And that happens every minute. So every second it checks to see what's playing, it gets the CMS ID and inserts it as an ID3 tag. And then every 1 minute it checks the playlist and updates the playlist. So the encoder is constantly getting updated with the new order of the content. And that was a very sort of brief run through of how we conceived and built NFL Now, and how that is a good example of, again, that's a digital-only experience that is very much like watching a network, but it's a digital version that's has its own talent, its own crew, and so it's a great example of just how things are changing. Also, would like to talk about NFL Mobile. NFL Mobile is the only place you can actually watch a live NFL game in the game window in the United States on a smartphone, which is, I know the rights are very specific, but this is an app that the NFL has created that if you're a Verizon customer, you can watch any game happening live in your market in the United States. So again, I just wanted to give you a little bit of how we sort of set that up. We basically, at a very, very high level, I can go into many details, but just to keep things sort of moving, we have 3 different sort of POPs or acquisition sites. For that live video, we have NFL facilities in Culver City. We have Encompass in Atlanta and Encompass in Stamford. So all 3 of those sites have redundant encoders and are all pushing to the CDN. So if any moment one of those areas has a bad experience, we just flip over to the other POP. All of our game feeds are distributed via a dedicated 10 gig fiber wave. Plus we can also get it over satellite. So we have lots of redundancy there to ensure high availability. We also protect our streams using token authentication. So very, very simple. The application talks to a back-end service that only our application can talk to get a token. And once it gets that token, it applies it to the stream. If it's valid, it will play back. If it's not valid, it will error and give you a 403. So we kind of optimize that workflow to make the application be very, very quick and not have to think about whether it's entitled or not. It talks to a service. The service says you're entitled, says here's your token, and it plays the stream. I'll give you just a little bit more sort of detail on what sort of one of these facilities, again, might look like. Very high level again. We have the stadium feed. We get that over either a fiber. We use level 3 Vivix, as well as satellite. All of the backhauls go to New Jersey, to NFL Films. We also get all the front hauls as well from all the broadcasters. So we have, again, multiple ways to get that content in, and then we basically funnel it into the Encoding Center facility, which usually has some sort of house router, sort of technical operations center that kind of manages the ingest of those feeds. We sort of have our own dedicated digital media slice of that infrastructure that we can route and manage any of those feeds how we want. So we will route those feeds to our encoders, and those encoders will push out to the CDN. And then I have here too, one thing that we do is we push it not only to the CDN for consumption for the fan, but we push an alternate stream to Snappy TV because we were needing to solve the ability to have highlights delivered to the app in near real time. And so by having the encoders do all the heavy lifting in terms of the compression using a GPU accelerated capture card made a lot of sense. Otherwise, we have to have other hard tools like Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere, which are DVC Pro or ProRes sort of codecs, a lot more heavy lifting in terms of getting those to be compressed out into 8-bit rates, turned into HLS. So that would take maybe a few minutes for a 1-minute clip. Using Snappy TV, we can do it in seconds because all of the heavy lifting has been done by the live encoder. And then we also map data feeds from the field to each game so that when the editor wants to cut a highlight of a touchdown, in the UI of Snappy TV, he selects that touchdown data and then automatically puts the endpoint on the video of where that play occurred, taking a lot of the guesswork out of the actual cutting, because we're just trying to get the highlight to the fan very quickly. So that's why I have Snappy TV in there as well. And then just to talk a little bit about the engagement. The engagement has been very good. So far, we're seeing a 75% increase year over year of minutes consumed. As an example, 23 million minutes were consumed in week 10. And just to keep in mind, this is on one carrier, Verizon, and on iOS and Android. So very sort of thin piece of the market, but still seeing a lot of engagement in that one small sector of the market. Our video startup time is about 2.2 seconds. We're seeing a lot of, the people who are watching it are watching a lot of content. Unique visitors per minute's watch is around 50 minutes with an average bit rate of 3.9. So that's a lot of content for one visitor on a smartphone. Usually we think, oh, you're at a grocery store, you're trying to catch up on something because you're not at home, you're not in front of a bigger screen. But this is suggesting otherwise, that people are watching a lot of content on their phone. Red Zone, for example, the viewer average is 81 minutes. That's, I mean, I'm one of those fans, actually. I was watching Red Zone the other day at my house. I could have been in my living room, but I was doing other things around the house, just carrying my phone with me, watching Red Zone. So I can see why that number is so high. Pretty good rebuffering ratio at 1.7%. We average about 385 gigabits a second each Sunday. So that's pretty much sustains from a 10 a.m. window to close to 4 o'clock. That's pretty close to what kind of the traffic that we're seeing throughout the day, with around 750,000 unique live video views. And what's interesting is that our growth has been actually steady throughout the whole season. Usually we expect week 1 in September to be our high water mark. So we get very, very prepared for this big event when the NFL season starts again. And we say, as long as we get through week 1, we'll be good. But this year, week 10 was the peak. Every week it just keeps getting bigger and bigger in terms of viewership, minutes consumed, and concurrence. So it's actually the opposite. We're actually seeing a very steady growth. We've delivered 12 petabytes in 2 months over the course of 10 windows of time, 10 8-hour windows or so. So quite a bit of traffic delivered, and because of our architecture, we're able to deliver 5 nines of uptime. It really actually would be 100%, but I thought if I put that, no one would believe me. So I just kept it at 5 nines. Because it actually is, I think, about 100%. We have not had any streaming outages so far, and we're averaging about 250 to 300,000 concurrence that, again, sustains throughout the entire day. So we start at 10 a.m. and it just goes right up, and then it just sustains pretty much. 1 p.m. when the morning games are getting over and the afternoon games are starting, we'll definitely see a spike, but that's about the average that we see. So, in conclusion, digital is obviously growing very rapidly. TV has plateaued, except for the NFL. Actually, that's sort of the punchline here, is that the NFL, in terms of broadcast, is actually the one group that's actually seeing a very, very, very double-digit percentage increase year over year of audience on the broadcast side. But with that said, a lot of our new original content is being created digitally first. Fantasy Live, for example, is a show that is created digitally for the internet, but NFL Network decided to pick it up. So it runs as a digital-only show on NFL.com at 1 p.m., and then it runs on NFL Network at 2 p.m. But that show is conceived entirely as a digital-only show. NFL Network decided they would pick it up as well. So the big X factor is, as rights open up to more platforms for live NFL games, will the internet be ready? As I said, right now, it's a Verizon phone, iOS, Android, Windows phone. And as the rights sort of open, are we going to be able to sort of deliver that sort of, what is it? I think 18 million viewers is the average viewership for any NFL telecast. So take the whole entire year and average it, and even the bad games average 18 million for a telecast. So I think there's definitely, it's going to be interesting how that is going to get fulfilled in terms of the infrastructure around just being able to actually handle all of that, that viewership that would potentially swing over from a broadcast side to a digital side. And the rights for broadcast will open up in a few years, so we'll see how that shakes out. Right now, the broadcasters, I think, have rights until 2022 for a lot of them. But so it'd be very interesting to see how, over the next couple of years, some of those rights open up, even among the broadcasters like CBS, who are already doing OTT games. Yahoo did the OTT game. And then in the postseason, we'll see a lot more of all of the games offered OTT and on smartphones. So with that, I will leave it up for questions. I know I went through that quickly. So please feel free to ask me if I want to go back to anything or questions in general. Yes?
Do you have any issues with latency on the screen? You know, I'm from New York, so I actually hear people screaming out the window during touchdowns when they're watching games. It's amazing, right? That movie that was on years ago. Like,
Sure.
so do you have any issues with latency where it's significant in a live stream?
Yeah, that's the biggest challenge. One of the biggest challenges, I would say. I think once we can solve two things, the synchronization of viewer experience across multiple devices. Amar touched on it earlier today in the keynote, but until we can have 4 people sitting in a room and they're all on their phone or devices and they're all watching at the same point of time, it's going to pose a problem. So that's one challenge we have to solve. The other challenge is, I think, a lot easier to solve, which is getting the data and the video to also be in sync, because you can't have data get to your phone faster than video. Otherwise, it's going to spoil what's going to happen next. If all of a sudden your phone says the score is 13-6, and the broadcast on your phone says, oh, it's 7-6. So you know, okay, something just happened. So now it kind of spoils a little bit of the anticipation for you. So that's also another challenge. And I think one way to solve that would be to likely do what we do with NFL Now, which is put the data in the video stream. So that way you're never going to have the application say, let me consume this over here for data, and let me consume this over here for video. It should just consume one thing that has video and data. Sure. So our streams are protected via token authentication, which is not actually true DRM. So we lock it down by having a secret token that you can only get if you have a different token to connect to our token service that actually gives you the token. So yeah, it's a token for a token. So it's kind of hard. I mean, it'd be hard to steal, but it's not true, you know, DRM like Play Ready or, you know, those types of technologies. Yes.
I don't know if the studio itself falls under your team, but the same team building that Convergence built your studio, and so are there different technology in there, or different budgets?
So the question is around, are the studios for NFL Now built similarly to the way the Red Zone studios are built?
Yeah, more, is it the same team?
It is the same team. It's not my team, but it is the same team. Yep.
And was that, I guess the question is coming from when we build studios, sometimes the TV broadcast side, the installer has a different idea of what digital studio might be and whether there's a process.
Sure. No, it's an interesting point, and I think that footprint is evolving. It's getting a lot smaller. So the way in which we build a studio typically is we have a stage, and you have a lot of equipment for lighting and all that, which we have. But we built out 2 new studios at the NFL that are just green rooms that are maybe the size of like I don't know, not much bigger than where I am up here. Very tiny green rooms with talent and They just put all of the graphics behind it, and they have a small control room where they can do audio mixing and all that kind of stuff. So when they build out those studios, they are building them out differently because they're thinking about that these are actually studios that are literally being used for digital only. So the footprint is smaller, but yet the production value is the same. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Somewhat? Okay.
My only follow-up question would be, can I come see those videos?
I'm sure we could probably figure something out. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Earlier you mentioned HLS. Are you looking to sort of other protocols in the future, like things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. But I would think that we're probably HLS everywhere for the next year. Certainly open and looking for other protocols, but I would suspect that most likely we're going to stay that for another year. We certainly want to do everything we can to improve the quality because, as again the keynote today, NFL experiences the HD sort of, if we could do a 4K experience, that would be awesome. All the cameras that shoot, however, are not on 4K. So a lot of the broadcasters actually shoot 720. I think Fox is 720. So unfortunately, the source that we're getting already is what it is. But we certainly want to do everything we can to make the digital experience of watching a game look and feel very good, which is why on a smartphone, the average bitrate is 3.9 megs, which is pretty high for a smartphone, but that just shows you that because it is that high, it looks really good on our smartphone, so people are watching a lot more minutes of it. So if we can just make it look that good on a 75-inch screen, that'd be awesome. Yes?
I'm a little confused by all of the various NFL properties. Can you speak a little bit to the differences between NFL Now and Game Pass and the other?
Yeah, the question was around the different products that we offer. NFL Now is a channel inside the NFL mobile app. It's actually just a channel inside any of our apps. We have one app on each platform. So if you're on a connected device, you'll go to the NFL app on that device. If you're on a phone, it will go to NFL app on that device, which is just called NFL Mobile. If you're, and within those applications, you can go select the NFL Now experience, and you can go select the Game Pass experience. The Game Pass experience would be an in-app purchase, which allows you to view live streams internationally in-game, or view the cut-down, condensed version as a VOD after the game window. So we've kind of consolidated our product offering from download a Game Pass app, download a NFL mobile app, to just one app per device. And within that application, even NFL mobile, for example, you can upsell in-app purchase to the Game Pass. Yeah. When the broadcasters start shooting in 4K? So I don't know. It took many years to get the HD requirement out, so I would expect many years to get the 4K requirement. I think all the broadcasters should just do it together at the same time, personally, but they won't. Any other questions? I know Justin has a question. Go ahead.
The slides are online. It's useful.
Oh, the slides are not online, no. I can see about sharing them, though. I would have to talk to legal first. Just because, I don't know. For all I know, I could have said something that I shouldn't have said. I don't know. But I think so. I actually cleared a lot of this stuff before, so it should be okay. Okay.
Streaming video, live streaming on the site.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Yeah, I hope that was useful and educational. I know there's a lot to cover, and I could go into a lot more depth on any one of those slides, but hopefully that gave you at least a good sort of snapshot of the state of digital at the NFL. Thank you.